Morning, Oli Lavers.
Hello. How
are
are
you,
we?
mate? I found a nice little spot outside, and then the guy's just got the blower going, mate. So I've had to move.
I love it.
I'm an hour
background? It's nearly
I'm an hour behind. I'm an hour behind, Ollie. It's Queensland time, buddy.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Nice you to dress up, buddy.
Yeah, I've well, the bottom half is still trackies.
You got a formal on today?
Yeah, I'm taking my year 12 date to the to dinner first. Beautiful. And then we're going to a nice little formal afterwards.
Cute. But that's it. In the background, always building brand. I like it. Hey, look at that.
Hey.
All right, here we go. We got Johnny, Cameron, Adam, Alex, Brendan, Christian, Paluzzi, Flynn, Batesy, Heathy, Jakey, James, Jamie Lee, Lauren, Dicko, Logs, Matty King, Rosie. Smiles, I saw you just jumping on, buddy, just in time, and Stokesy. So we'll wait another minute, mate. We'll kick it off.
Yeah, no worries. How's your morning?
I've had a lovely morning, mate. Lovely morning. Had a call with Ducky. Had a call with Fegan.
Yeah.
Had a call with Jakey. Had a call with Benny. It's only 7:30 up here, mate.
Wow. What time did you get up?
I got up here at 5, buddy. 5.
That's a lesson in itself. How much can you fit into one day, hey?
Exactly.
Pretty impressive. Well, mate, I went to the gym at 5 and
nice.
Went to Coogee Beach, did 10 minutes of meditation, and now ready to take over the world.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So for people that haven't met Ollie, mate, where'd you start in real estate quickly?
So I was David Gray's first assistant. I'd probably say it. Min 360 property in Randwick. Started from ground zero, originally from Canberra. Now working in Sydney, so had no network up here.
Yeah, cool. All right. So Ollie rang me last night and said, like, what are we going to talk about today? So who knows? But what I thought about, mate, obviously in a change of market, we start to doubt ourselves. So, mate, how many times did I take a call where you maybe thought real estate wasn't for you?
Yeah, so very early on, the first few years, it's a really hard slog to sort of break through. I used to call Dave. I remember, sometimes in the morning, I'd be, I wouldn't be backing myself. There was one time that I sat down with Dave. This was just before I joined Gav's team, and I was working with Danny Doff at Lang & Simmons, and I wasn't really going any for a year and a half. I wasn't really progressing. I was working around the clock, but my income wasn't getting any better. Dave more or less said, if you can't make it, with Gav, then you should get out of real estate. And that's when, working with Gav, I know if you actually do the work consistently and back yourself, then you're going to be okay. So as the market is getting tougher, instead of going, into a scarcity mindset and going, shit, like, how much money have I got? If I don't make a sale, how long can I survive? That's the wrong mindset we get into. And that's my normal mindset. But since I listen to so many podcasts and speak to people like Dave, it's more about going, what do I need to do to find these listings? People still need to list and sell. So I've had to really change my mindset so I don't go back and retreat and go, shit, is real estate really for me? It's more on the aggressive side and going, I'm going to make this work. I haven't got a plan B. If I have to work 30% harder for, 30% less income, that's what I have to do.
Yeah, cool. And last year you wrote what?
2.55.
2.55. And how was your month last month?
I wrote 503,000 in a month.
Cool. And then I think on the 2nd of March we went out on Saturday night. And what was I saying to you all night?
He said, "How's this month looking? How's this month looking? How much have you made this month?" It's day 2, but I've already forgotten. Yeah. I've already forgotten about. So
let's explain that lesson to the guys. So you had your best month ever. Everyone, I'm proud of you. But what was the lesson I was giving you on the fucking 2nd?
That was last month. What does this month look like? And that's what I've had to get used to, is the roller coaster of real estate. You fly high.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that roller coaster. I think that's the lesson for everyone, because as a mate, I get to watch you on that, and you know, like, it's easy for me. I can even sort of like laugh about it. But you know, January, mate, you had a shit month. February, you've had a great month. I've seen you go from the low to the high, and then you know, you could think, oh, what an arsehole, Dave's smashing you on the second. But talk about that. How I'm trying to protect you from that roller coaster as a mate.
So when you're flying high, you think this is easy, and you forget about the hard times. You know, you think you're God's gifts, and you know, these listings are just going to keep coming in. And then when you have you sell all your stock, and then you're there on the first, and you're like, shit, I've got to repeat this to keep the momentum going. And as I've been doing it for longer, I understand the roller coaster. But the roller coaster is what I'm trying to get off. I'm actually trying to have a one level playing field, so there's no ups and downs. If you look at someone like Alex Phillips's business, he has always got stock. He's got stock coming on constantly, so he doesn't have this, you know, good month, bad month, good month, bad month. But where I am at the moment is I'm back in the trenches. I'm making my 150 phone calls. I'm making my cold calls. I'm doing my door knocks. I'm doing my letterbox drops, and that's to get me back on top, and get me back on top of the roller coaster.
Yeah, and then I know in March and April, if you got too busy selling in February, that's what's going to show in March and April, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So
if you weren't prospect, if you know, in February, obviously selling to get that month that you got. Yep. And in March and 8, you have 2 shit months. That just shows me that you didn't have the discipline to prospect when you're busy. Is that fair?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Mate,
I agree with that.
And you're naturally a nice guy. Nice guys don't always win. And that was one of the things in real estate. You had to learn to get that little bit of a grunt in you. Yep. And Gab was brilliant for that. Let's talk about, you know, that grunt, and in that also incorporates self-belief. Like what you know, I remember when you carried on about writing $1 million, and you know, that was your goal for a year, and you lived for it, and then here you are writing $500,000 in 1 month. Like what's changed? Like, and what would be your advice to, you know? And I think there's breaks, isn't there? There's like the 240, and then there's 500, then there's 500, there's $1 million, and then there's $1 million, there's 1.5, and then whatever else you want to do after that, it's up to you. But how do you break through whatever level you're at? Because I think it's the same level. Whether you're at 240, you go 500, or 500 $1 million, or $1 million to 2, it's the same. Talk to me about what needs to change.
So for me, coming from, I suppose it doesn't really matter where I'm coming from, but I'd say I'm the last kid of, you know, 4 kids, and was probably babied. And I had this belief issue with myself coming to the eastern suburbs. And, you know, my confidence got belted in the eastern suburbs for the first couple of years that I was here. Sorry, Dave, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just went black out so you can hear me. Yeah.
Cool. No, cool. So then I remember sitting down with Dave one time, and this is when I first became out of my my own agent. And I used to try and be like Gav. I used to walk into a listing presentation and sit down like Gav, talk like Gav, use the same dialogue like Gav. And then I remember one time sitting down with Dave and goes, you know what, Oli, people don't want a real estate agent.
Don't you mean you sat down so you're the same height as him?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But yeah, so I sat down with Dave, and Dave said, look, people don't want a real estate agent. You know, they want a real person in their house. Just be you. You know, the property talk comes second, but just talk about just get along with the person and be you. And ever since I understood that, and I started walking into these listing presentations, and I could be honest, like I'd been chasing these people for 5-6 years, and they knew exactly who I was. And sometimes these listing presentations at the start weren't contested, but now all my listing presentations are contested, but it never changes. I go in, and my main focus is to get along with that person, make them feel comfortable, make them understand that I have the same hope and dream that they have for their property, and we're on the journey together. I make them understand that it's not a real estate agent versus a vendor anymore. We're on the same playing field. So that's really been a breakthrough for me, is to understand real estate is not about property. Real estate is about people. And if someone feels comfortable with you, then you're going to go a long way. I had a vendor of mine that I did a conjunction with, Gav. We sold it yesterday, and they called me and they said, "Oli, look, I know how this works. You did all the heavy lifting. I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate you being you. You're going to go a long way to be you. Please don't get that ego like we see all those other real estate agents have, because I really enjoyed working with you. And if anyone else wants to sell, I'm going to be telling them to sell with you." And that's just from being a real person. And after I started getting feedback like this from lots of people, that's where I guess my breakthrough happened. And then I started believing in my ability, and that's my ability to get along with people.
Yeah, and as we're talking today, mate, and I haven't really looked at it like this, it's really...
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
Things really like this is of your self-confidence. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. This is really a clear indication of your career, and you've got self-confidence. So, and your self-belief and growing into who you are. And then second, around discipline around the calls. Talk to me about your discipline around your database and making calls.
Yeah, for sure. So, and this is probably where I'd say better than most agents. And this is where most agents get it wrong. I'm very disciplined with my weekly structure. So come Monday, I'm up at 4:40 in the morning, go to the gym. I come back, breakfast, in the office by 8, and that's when I start calling. I smash out at least 30 connections. That's not 30 dials, 30 connections, 30 conversations before I have my first appointments. My first appointments start after 11 o'clock. I'm better on the calls in the morning because I can spit them out. I'm full of energy. And then I try line up all my appointments, and then I'll come back in the afternoon between 5 and 7. And then that's when I do my database calls. The morning calls are the just listed and just sold calls to my database as well. The reason why I do that's like an Alex Phillips method. These people, want to get information from you within the street. And then in the afternoon is my, I guess, alert calls where, I've set up tasks. I will make sure that my tasks go down to 0 at the end of the day. I remember when I started at mid-360, they got up to 100, 200 tasks, and you never get through them. But if you actually make sure that you get to 0 every day, then of course you're going to stay on top of them. Don't cheat your calls because and what I mean by that is, don't, get a tally and then just start, marking them off and thinking that you've gotten, 30 connections. You actually got to sit there and do it, because if you do want to be successful and you do want to, you want to make a certain amount, then really that's going to be your income. The more calls you make, the more connections you make with people, the more money you're going to make, and more transactions.
Yeah, cool. So, mate, most people, you get to work with Gav every day, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Obviously, most people have seen him on the TV show. Gav wrote last year roughly
6.3 million.
6.3 million. I mean, tell me 2, 3, 5 things you've learned off working with a bloke that, has got that dedication for his craft.
Yeah. So again, Gav's a little bit of a freak in terms of his business is his main priority. You go to dinner with him and he'll be on his phone, on Instagram, emailing. He'll always answer his calls. Business has always come number one. The only time he won't answer his calls is when he's in Europe in July and his phone's diverted. But other than that, it's almost painful to go to dinner with. But that's real estate. The other is even though he's making, $6.3 million, it's going to be more this year. He's still he's in the office right now at 8 o'clock. He'll be driving. If you try call him at 8:30 or 9, he'll be driving home from his last appointment. That's how big his days are. Every morning without fail, he will be in the gym. He gets there at 5:30 and trains for an hour and a half. Which, even if he had a drink the night before, he would still get up and go to the gym. I think that's pretty impressive. Right now he's doing 3 months of no drinking. He's just like everybody else. He loves to have a drink and go out to dinner or whatnot. But right now he's sacrificing 3 months to focus 100% just on work, and he does this every year. He believes that discipline creates freedom. which it does. And that means he's going to be able to make what he wants to make, and he goes on the holidays he wants to go
Yeah,
on.
cool. So that's insane that he gives that up to build that career that he does, which is awesome. With us, I talk about intensity in the workplace. So, the part of the lifestyle group is that we actually have a balanced life. So we go to work, we work hard, but then we go home and we build a life outside of it, which I know that you and Rach have got that outside of real estate.
Yep.
What I talk about that intensity, like when he's chasing a deal, or maybe he sold a couple of properties for me, with buyers, and then he connected with me. Like, how about, his actual craft? What are a couple of things from his craft that the team could take away from?
Impressive. So when he is chasing a property, it's like the only thing he's ever thinking about. Whether it's a small unit or a large house, he always will send me messages, first thing in the morning. Where's this up to? When was the last time you called them? Do I need to call them? He's always on that, chase list of what's next. When he's closing a deal, as soon as we get a contract come in, I'm not sure if it's like up there, we always try to get an unconditional contract. As soon as that unconditional contract comes in, that's when it's like a trigger to go, let's go, let's close this thing. So he's, and also what I might add on is, if you break down what he is worth per hour, I know as I said this to one of your team members the other day, if you break down what he's worth per hour, he will make sure that every second of that hour is doing something. It'd be you won't see him sitting down, with a coffee for a mate. You won't see him on the phone call with a mate. If anyone calls him, he will say, I'm about to step into the meeting. What's up? Because he hasn't got that time to have that shit talk on the phone. There's always that urgency of I'm here to work. I'm not here to muck around.
It's really incredible. I mean, we can talk about Gavin, we can talk about Bo, we can talk about, you're lucky enough to, hung out with Alex for sure. I mean, all these guys, and even yourself, it's just really around discipline and intensity. Yeah. Like, there's no real secret. It's about becoming yourself, indifferent, and then work out what you want. Mate, a lot of the team have heard me all talk about Arthur, and obviously, Arthur was a big influence on your career and my career. What are some things you could share in your world that you learned from Arthur?
I like that Arthur's got this ability. He's like him as a person is like a magnet. So if you in the middle of a nightclub and he's sitting in the corner of the room, for some reason everyone will be attracted to him. How does he do that? I believe it's this. He has this uber confidence about himself. And in terms of real estate craft, he said to me, just like Dave said, he goes, Ollie, you're a likable guy. Just be yourself. If you can be yourself, then you're going to have no problems. Right now, you're trying to be somebody else. So I think Arthur he was so comfortable in his own skin. And I think that was probably partly why he was so successful, and he backed himself, through and through. And I guess Arthur, in terms of, I haven't had really too much to do with in terms of like the real estate craft. He just sort of was focusing more on.
But how about putting a deal together? How about putting a deal together? If you had 20 grand away.
Yeah. Look, I guess when there was a story when I used to work at Min 360 property, I sat on a property for 3 months. Couldn't sell it. Again, it was the very start of my career. I thought this thing was impossible to sell. I couldn't make one inspection because I had an auction, and Arthur took this inspection from me. He had one buyer come through the property and he sold in 2 weeks. So Arthur has this ability to absolutely sell. Some people think that real estate agents get paid to stand at a property and take names and numbers and just run an auction. That's not true. In a harder market, you've got to be able to sell. You've got to be able to sell that this is value to the buyer, and no one has done it better than Arthur Curtis.
Yeah, and I think it was more than that. I was lucky enough to work with him for freaking half my life. But people can believe what they want, but I think that secret and that belief, if you believe it, you just make things happen. I just believe, that buyer turns up, even if you didn't sell it to it, that buyer turns up because you have a strong belief, and it might be a bit airy-fairy for a Thursday morning, but, I've got a strong belief on that. Yeah. I think, and I know myself, you can think it's a fluke. You have a good month and you think it's a fluke, or,
I still think it's a fluke.
Yeah, and I'm watching that now as a mate, watching that on, but really there's clues along the way to what's working and what's not. And when we doubt ourselves, that's when we go backwards. What are some things you could share with the team around, there's no way you ever thought you could write 500 grand in a month ever. Yeah.
Never. No, yeah. Sorry.
Actually, let's move on from that. Remember, you wanted to write $1 million and you're nearly short, and I was into you hard around your goal around $1 million. What are your lessons from that? And do you reckon any of the lessons of that are now why you're writing more than you're writing now?
I think
you're 980 and you're carrying on.
Yeah, I needed that extra 20 grand because making $1 million wasn't. Yeah, I needed it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be making $1 million. I'd be a $980,000 writer. I think that's probably what Gav has drilled into me. You need to hit it. I'll probably get a little bit deeper in terms of, I guess, why I guess I've gotten to this level. Is that I always felt like I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, like everything was a fluke. And that's why I've had to work so hard to do it, to try and refluke it. But over time, I realized that if you're just doing the activity and you do more activity than anybody else, then it doesn't become a fluke anymore. I know in my office, no one makes more phone calls than I do. And that's why I'm sitting at the top of the scoreboard. I don't worry about what anyone else is doing. I just worry about my own activity. In terms of focusing on a mill GCI, I was so focused on the GCI component. And Dave was saying, just focus on the transactions. Focus on, getting 10 transactions and you're going to get there. Break it down, do the numbers. That's what Dave was focusing on. And then of course, I got Gavin the other ear that just focuses purely on GCI. So if you list a property and it's got, a shit fee to it, Gav won't be happy. He'd be like, why would you do that? Where some agents are focusing on, well, if I just get more stock levels on, then I'll get more exposure, then it keeps going. So yeah. I guess I'm lucky that I've had both people sort of telling me which way is I should be focusing on, because sometimes if you focus just on GCI and you're going nowhere, or maybe you've got 10 apartments and you only you can only sell 200,000 worth of GCI from the 5-6 apartments. You don't feel good about it anymore because you're like, shit, I've just done all that work and only got that GCI, where you should still be proud of yourself. Well,
if you look at that formula, it's like setting the goal. Like let's say for someone in our office, it's like, okay, I'm going to set a goal to write 500. And then my question would be, well, why are you writing? Okay, if I write 500, I can upgrade my house and I can upgrade my car. Well, that's a good fucking reason. All right. Yeah. And then after that, you set that goal like Gav would, and you're really hungry for that goal. But then you go back to okay, well, what's my process? What does 500 grand look like? And then I'm going to act like a 500 grand a year writer all year. Mm. And then if you don't focus on the outcome and you just do the work, that's where you get the yin and yang. And I think, where, I loved Oli, you've had, me in your corner, you've had Gav, you've had Arthur, I know you've done work with Panos or Fegan. Adrian Bowe actually took the credit the other day. I love that.
I know.
That was cute.
I had 2 sessions with him.
Yeah, that was cute. He took all the credit. But I mean, look, last night I spent an hour on Instagram just looking at different businesses. Like, tell me about that search for knowledge and keep looking at different mentors for different lessons. Yeah, because it's not about like picking Gav apart or me apart or Arthur apart or any other mentor that you might find. It's just taking that little bit of gold and then making it Ollie's. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I'll touch on Adrian Bowe. So Adrian Bowe, anyone who doesn't know him, they probably do. He was a big writer in Coogee. And when I first started in real estate, he was like the hero of the Coogee area where I lived. And what I wanted to get from him really was just the way that he used to canvas. In his podcast, he used to talk about the way he canvassed, and I wanted to implement that into my own structure. So I had 2 sessions with him and ran through the just listed, just sold canvassing methods, and that's all I needed from him. So then I stopped sort of training, but I still got that from him. So he can take whatever credit he wants. And then you look at someone like Arthur, and Arthur for me focuses more on energy. And for be yourself. And then you look at someone like Dave, and Dave for me sort of keeps me grounded and stops me, having an ego the size of a house, and then saying, how much have you written this month? How much have you written this month? And that's what I get from Dave. And then I have someone like James Short who focuses on, you know, the balance of life, but also, you know, why do we want to write this, break this down? And so I'm lucky that from all these different people, they've started to give me bits and pieces that I needed from that person. You know, like Rachel's parents, you know, although they may not be big income earners, so I don't focus on that for them, but geez, they got a beautiful relationship. So I focus on them to give me, you know, advice on how to have a great relationship with your partner. So I've realized you can't get all this from one person. I focus on what can I get from that person to make myself better.
I love that. And that's what you know, as a business, I want to give everyone tools in their toolkit. And then you can, you know, like today, they got a bit of Oli Lavers, and, you know, there might be 3 people that, you know, get a huge amount. There might be some people that go, oh, that's awesome. So it's about having a toolkit. And then when you're in that dark space, and that, you know, that's why I say in real estate, we get paid for that roller coaster. And then you think, oh, fuck, you know, mate, this is what Gav would do. He'd go harder and make sure he wrote 100 this month or 50 this month or 20 this month. Okay, cool. Actually, you know what? I'm feeling a bit flat. And then James Short, oh, well, then what do I need to do in relation to freaking my relationship and have a nice Sunday with my partner? Oh, wow, I can't sell this property. Okay, what would I do? What would Arthur do? Arthur would fucking manifest it with energy. You know what? This Saturday, I'm going to turn up. I'm going to find a buyer. And then, you know, and then that lesson around what'd you write this month is, it's not as, it's just so what? Just enjoy the process and enjoy the job, and just be humble and hungry, you know, like, who gives a fuck? If you look,
to comment on that dark place, if you don't mind, yeah, we all go to this dark place. You know, sometimes if you haven't got a goal and you're working your heart out, you sort of go, what am I doing this for, right? And even when you're earning money and you go, like for myself right now, I've got no personal, like I've got no time in my personal world, and I go, you know, what am I doing this for? But then you go back to your goals, you go back to your 12-month planner, and you go, shit, you know, wow, this is why I'm doing it. You know, it sort of resets you, right? And then I'd also say, when you do go to that dark place and you're not, so you haven't got the stock on the shelf, what that means is you haven't been doing the activity. With real estate, I feel like we operate on adrenaline. And if I go to a dark place and I look at, you know, the amount of calls I'm doing, I'm like, well, I haven't been doing enough calls. And then if I go, great, I'm not going to leave the office until I punch out 30 or 40 calls, I can tell you after those connections, I've given myself some adrenaline, because I found people that want to sell. I found some appraisals. I found people that just like me and want to talk to me. And that gets me back on top. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Activity breeds activity.
Mate, we've talked about goals, we've talked about money, we've talked about self-discipline. I think one thing we forget, like, I fucking still love this. You know what I mean? It's 20 on year. And I think that's what we all forget. Like, this game's fucking cool. It's a fucking good game. You know what I mean? Like, Saturday night, I wasn't even drinking. I think at fucking 1 o'clock in the morning, we're still talking shit about real estate. But like, let's finish the conversation off with some good shit. Like, why do you still fucking love it?
I say to Dave all the time, ago, you know, fuck, I love real estate. We are so lucky to do what we do. You know, I drive along and look out the window and I see people laying bricks or, you know, building houses, or, you know, the garbage man. I go, fuck, you know, geez, I love what I do. All I do all day, every day is talk to people. Really, like how good is that? I'm the most uneducated person. I went I didn't do great academically in college. I didn't go to university. And now, you know, I'm making more than you know, a doctor, which my mum's a doctor, and that's always been like, oh, I've always worried about my own income, you know, and that's why, you know, you do get into the dark place and you should go, shit, this thing is hard, but then it's like the reward of real estate is fantastic. But then all we have to do is talk to people. Like, really, we're not doing, you know, a huge amount of heavy lifting. It's just having conversations and helping people move to the next chapter. That's why I say we're very blessed and very lucky to be in, you know, such a great industry.
You know what I got out of that? I think in real estate, our driver is to run from scarcity. Yeah, like, you know, your mum was a warrior, doctor, all this sort of stuff, and different stuff that happened in your life. So, you know, when I think about it, a real driver for any good salesperson is fucking scarcity. And you come from a fear, or you come from a drive, or you come from a fuck you, that dark space. And I think what I'm thinking about is that watching you, and when you get abundant, then the secrets are real, and you balance abundance and necessity, and then live we can.
You're cutting out there, Dave.
You still got me there? Yeah,
No,
sorry, it was all right. I was halfway through a speech, but you got calls to make, Ollie, and so do they, mate. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I've got great access to Ollie. Obviously, if anyone's got any questions, email me through, and then I can get Ollie to come back. And that would be awesome. Ollie, love your time, mate. Thank you so much. See you
no worries.
soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Cheers,
it. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, buddy. Bye, mate. Bye,
Cheers, mate.
bye, bye.
Bye.